So there's a really simple way to understand how the narcissist gets inside of your head, zoom out, and lives there rent free. Um, I'm going to try and explain this without using complicated terms, complicated psychoanalytic language, psychiatric language. So the first thing is the introjected part. So real brief. If you watch me a lot on YouTube, or you have like your favorite YouTuber or somebody you watch a lot of, eventually, let's use me as an example. You're going to get used to the way I see things. You're going to get used to the kind of jokes that I would probably tell at what particular points. And then after, I don't know, there's probably psychology studies that could be done that'd be like, how many hours would you need to listen to somebody before you can get a pretty good sense of where they're going to come from? Let's say you listen to 25 hours of a person speaking on a subject, or 30 hours or 35 hours, whatever it is. Eventually you're going to figure it out what it is that they would say. You'll be like, Richard would say this, or he's going to make this joke at this point, or he's going to go with this angle on this issue right now. Sometimes people will surprise you, but usually your capacity to map somebody after you've heard them talking enough is probably going to be pretty good, right? So that is a kind of soft introjection. You've introjected, in the example I'm using, you've introjected me. If you've been listening to me for long enough, you can be like, what would Richard say about this? Oh, he would probably do this. That's an introject. So that's easy. Why does the narcissistic abuser have, with the negative introjections, have so much more power then than like positive than a positive introject with positive injunctions would have? Well, so let's stick with this. I'm slightly regretting this example, but let's stick with it. So let's say you willingly watch me and you get something out of it. And at the point where you stop getting something out of it that day, you're like, okay, I'm bored of this now. I'm going to go and do something else, which happens, right? You're just like, that's enough. That was educational. That was amusing, whatever. Enough. And you can choose to just use your thumb and I disappear and somebody else starts talking, or you put your phone down or you put your laptop down and go and get on with the rest of your day. You have an option. You have consent. You have control. When you live with somebody and they are emotionally and psychologically abusive, you lose consent. You lose control. So here's one factor is you are now no longer in control of how long the conversation or the monologue, I guess this is a monologue, but then you're thinking inside of your head to what I'm saying and arguing with me at the same time. So yeah, it's kind of like a dialogue inside of your head. You control it. You can just stop it anytime you want to. When you're living with somebody, or you're the parent of you're the child of a narcissistic parent, or it's your wife, your husband, girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever, significant other, person you live in the same house as, there's no consent. Consent's out the window. They talk. What are you going to do? Just go la 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 la? Not like you hear them. You can hear them. So consent is gone. Control is gone. You can't stop them. And then this third element, which is negative injunctions and negative speech is more powerful to the central nervous system, to the brain and body, than positive speech, because it makes sense. We'll just do like that little bit of evolutionary biology, evolutionary psychology light, and say, well, if you're receiving a positive message in evolutionary terms, that means you can keep going to eat the berries and you'll live longer and healthier and produce more offspring. If it's a negative signal, that negative signal could come once and then your genetic lineage is over. Like if you say, I say there's berries over here, which is what I'm doing in these videos. I'm like, there's healing over here. You could feel better. You could feel more confident. You could go on with the rest of your life if you go over here. There's berries over here. You could do that, or you could not do that. What difference does it make? I don't want to eat berries today. I'll eat them tomorrow. But if it's a negative signal, and I'm like, there is a saber-toothed tiger running through the village now, you don't have, evolutionarily, you don't have the option to be like, I don't, I don't want to run away today. Maybe tomorrow I'll. No, no, no. There's no tomorrow. If you don't run, you day. You gone. It's over. There's no. It's finished. Acabado. Fechado. It's over. So you you almost are compelled to listen to negative messaging at a biological genetic level with a greater degree of responsiveness than to positive messaging. Yes, greater protection for my offspring, a nicer house, a better shelter, more berries, more food, clean water. Yes, it's very nice. It's lovely, but it's kind of a luxury. Tomorrow, I can do it tomorrow. There are alien invaders. The other tribe has come to gather us up, enslave us, and offer us to sacrifice to the moon god. No, you can't ignore that. And those that did, and for sure there were, they're bred out. They've been bred out because they all died. So whenever you're getting mad that you feel anxious or you can't sleep, just remember that you might have been the one, or you're paranoid. That potentially in situations of high conflict is a positive adaptation. Oh, I woke up in the middle of the night. Oh, it's so annoying to have insomnia. Oh, I noticed the enemy tribe was attacking us when everybody else was asleep because I woke up. Or I'm really anxious and paranoid, so I saw the predators when no one else did. That's a positive adaptation in high conflict, low resource environments. So, why does the narcissist live rent free in your head? Because you can't stop them. You can't, consent is out the window, and the messaging is negative, and your whole body and brain wants to resist the negative messaging of you're not good enough, there's something wrong with you, you're so stupid, you're such a disappointment to me. But you're evolutionarily wired to listen because it could be not logically or rationally or in a way that's meaningful in the modern world, but we're not adapted to the modern world. We didn't grow up here. The body and the brain and the emotions and the psychology that we run wasn't from cities and Uber and Tinder and Deliveroo, and cinemas and Taco Bell and any color sneaker that you want. That's not where our psychology and our body and brains came from. We're from massive amounts of stress, um, uh, uh, disease, and starvation, and death, and war. That's what we're adapted to. So this is why the narcissist's voice is always going to have so much more power than like a life coach or a mentor or a psychotherapist or your spiritual guide who's like, hey, you should just love yourself, you should respect yourself, take time out, be tranquil, meditate, embrace peace. All great. But these are, at the evolutionary level, these are optional messages. I think there is something also inside of us that could be an evolutionary adaptation to listen to tyrants, and to gather around, um, most more often than not, pathological leaders. And I wonder sometimes if the narcissist in our lives at a microcosmic level represents a sort of a sadomasochistic craving to be dominated, to be told what to do, to be told what to want, to be told how to live, in the way high priests, priestesses would have done, in the way feudal lords would have done, in the way your bourgeoisie, capitalist pig dog, factory owners, or whoever would have done. Either way, that narcissistic voice has a massive impact, and it's entrained in. And so then, even when they're not there, your body, your brain, your emotions are going, this person is very important, and their words are very important, and their opinion is very important. And then the other side of your brain is going, no, it's not. Why are we doing this? This is ridiculous. It's an unhappy coincidence that the messaging that this person's voice, this person's opinion, and this person's words are very important, happen to align exactly with the narcissist's false self and their false, grandiose, delusional narrative of who they are. They're like, yeah, my voice is very important. My opinion is the most important thing in the world. And yes, you should obey me. And yes, you should listen to me. It's an unfortunate coincidence, but that seems to be why it is the way that it is. So if I was going to try to explain how and why the narcissist continues to live inside your head as simply as I can, that's how I would do it. 10 minutes, 39 seconds. You've got to be impressed. Come on. That was great. And I stopped instead of rambling on and telling irrelevant stories, making stupid jokes. So I will now answer any questions you have, and I will bring as many irrelevant stories and stupid jokes in as I possibly can. Sadomasochism, says Angela. Pickle says, just tell me what you want me to cook and I'll cook it, damn it. Don't make me pick it out also. Bright Star says, well done, Richard. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, I agree. It was well done. Well done, me. Slap on the back for me. What is the psychology behind desiring to be dominated? Well, let's stay away from the fancy terminology. Like, what's the advantage of being dominated? Do you, like, this is where psychology drifts into philosophy a little bit. Being an adult is hard. Being responsible is tough. It's tiring because you're constantly gambling. You never really know if you're doing the right thing or not. And it's all your fault. It's all on you all the time. It's good and it's fun and it's necessary. But when people refuse to be an adult, or they, not when they refuse to be an adult, but when they shy away from their adult responsibilities, I can't bring myself to hate them. I'm not massively angry with people who do that, except if they know that directly or indirectly it's going to cause massive amounts of suffering to other human beings, in which case I will get angry. Because I live it. I live it every day. It's tough. It's tough. If you're being dominated and you're being told exactly what to do, all of that goes. Like, some of the things that we think are modern luxuries are really not. We're not adapted to this much choice. That we know this. The psychological research backs this. Too much choice for a human being is not. It's not like, so you have one choice. That's not good. Two choices is a little bit better. Three choices. We're getting to the optimal level of choice for a human being. Three. Well, that doesn't make any sense, because if we're applying mathematics to psychology, at the fourth choice, it should be 4 times better. At the fifth choice, it should be 5 times better. At the 10th choice, it should be 10 times better. And at the 100th choice, it should be 100 times better. But it's not. It's diminishing returns. We're actually quite simple beings, and we are not evolved for this much choice. So, yeah, I understand people who want to be dominated. I totally understand it. They say the best form of governance is a benevolent dictatorship. That makes total sense to me. There was a study done that said, where have people been happiest? In what culture were people happiest? And reported the highest levels of happiness. Slavoj Žižek, my favorite Slovenian philosopher, talks about this sometimes. And they cited the Czech Republic in the 1980s. So, yeah, it's still communist rule, but it's not as hot and heavy as it was. And no, you didn't always have meat, and you didn't always have luxury items, but some months they came and some months they disappeared. So you were happy when they were there. You always had someone to blame for everything. You always had somebody to blame for all your woes. You didn't have infinite choice as to where you could go, what you could study, where you could travel to, what jobs you could do. All of this was assigned to people. And you would think, no, that's a nightmare. Human beings couldn't possibly love that. Well, turns out that was quite a happy, peaceful time for people. And that's not me like making some covert suggesting that socialism or communism is a good idea. I think it's a dreadful, dreadful idea. I wouldn't want to live in that time because people didn't have their freedom. But I understand. And by the way, you couldn't go back to the Czech Republic today and then put them back in that situation and think they could be happy. No, they were happy in that timeline. And you got to remember they had the Nazis before they had the Russian rule there, and the Nazis were awful. So there is that. So they were comparing like, oh, these guys are bad guys, but they're not as bad as the dudes we had before. Infinite choice is not a good thing. So why do people want to be dominated? Because it's in human nature. Who wants to make all of it's just it's so hard. You got to make all your own choices all the time. All of them. All of them. When I was a kid, I wanted to join the military. And sometimes I think how blissful that would be to just be told. And if you get stuck in a shit country, you can just whinge about it and you'll leave after like a year or two anyway. They're like, you're in Germany, you're going to go and stay over here, you're going to go and stay in Singapore, you're going to stay, or you're doing this job now. You get the privilege of whinging about it because you didn't do it. Somebody did it to you. It's outside of you. I'm being semi-ironic. I don't want to live like that. I like living like this, but it's hard. So yeah, I understand people who want to be dominated and told what they want to do. I don't give joke and story. The story and joke give you in Soviet Russia or something. Bill Milky says sadomasochism is my religion. It seems to be like a fairly key feature of human psychology. Fairly key feature. Julie asks, my husband discarded me at the same time last year, just as we were due for a holiday. Now it's happened again, just before a holiday. So he discarded you for a holiday, then you got back together, and then again at the same time the next year he's discarded you again just for a holiday. Is this covert narcissism? So you couldn't one couldn't look at an event in somebody's life like this and then diagnose the personality disorder from this crappy behavior. You'd need way more information to know. There are good definitions online of covert and vulnerable narcissism that you can look up, and you can see if that matches the person that you're living with. But nobody could diagnose a personality disorder from this, admittedly, very crap and unpleasant behavior. Israel Beard says, do you have to pay to get your question answered on here? No, but how do I make that happen? Everyone pay me money now. How do I do that? I think you can, but don't. It's not necessary. Just copy your question and then keep hitting paste and just spam the comments until I answer it. Please don't do that. It's random. It's whatever I see. I'm seeing what you're saying in the chat. So all of these things come up in the chat. I'm saying that. John Anderson says, question. I know an extreme cluster B personality, mid-teen, grandiose, exploitative, manipulative. Parents are both nice people. Ideas on how to approach and handle such a child? No. No. Mid-teen, so 15, somebody else's kid? Nope. Nope. Even where this has come up with family members, I've been very, very like, until someone says, we want you to do this, until one of the parents says, we want you to intervene, I didn't do it. Apart from anything else, there's very, very, very little that you can do. Kids can be like this. It can be a phase where they're grandiose, exploitative, and manipulative. So it's a girl then. Like teenage girls get like this. I remember when I was used to teach in secondary schools, and most of the age group that I dealt with was 14 to 18-year-olds. And 14, 15, 16-year-old girls, particularly to other girls, they just go through this phase of just being a effing nightmare. What I saw was it was fairly short-lived. It would be like 14 to 16, 17, they're starting to come out of it. They're starting to like mature and calm down and be less vicious. It's not all girls, but like if I had a classroom full of 40 kids, 20 girls, 5 of those girls would be going through this phase. Grandiose, exploitative, manipulative. What did I used to call it? Stretching the claws. So boys are flexing their muscles and they're like punching each other in the arm, they're headlocking each other, and like they're wrestling like little barbarians. And the girls are like, how can I fuck you up psychologically? What can I say? Who can I ostracize? But not all. Like you got like clicks of them who do it. So hopefully that's just a phase. I hope. It could be evil. So evil. Miss Corey says, I had my first girl fight at 14. Pamela Mace, how do I stop wanting to know if my ex and the new supply have broken up? So this would be kind of like obsessing over your ex and not really being able to move on. And typically this is caused by the feeling that you've been rejected. So that rejection creates a little bit of an obsessive feeling, like, why has this happened? What's the truth of what's going on? What was the truth of the relationship? Did he ever really love me? So on and so forth. So there's fast ways of dealing with it, but then there's more permanent ways of dealing with it. And the more permanent way of dealing with this would be to go to therapy and to grieve fully for what has been lost. It's not fun. It's not a party, but it transforms you as a human being, makes you stronger, and it's the surest way of knowing that you won't get into something like this again and that you'll see it coming with clarity. It's like the tears wash your eyes. So grieving, the grieving process will help you to move past this. Primal Way is here. Attack of the narcissistic thumbnails. Jesus, you're giving them intel on us. Everybody say hi to Primal Way. He has returned. He is primal. Julie Burr hates my kids. Had to go everywhere he did. Okay. Morgan the Void. What a name. Morgan the Void. What do you do if a narcissist clearly puts self-pleasure as a higher priority than the intimacy in the relationship? Well, let's go upstream here. You said narcissist, so that's the most important thing. Like if you said, what if the narcissist doesn't takes the cheese out of a cheeseburger, or what if the narcissist puts the milk in before the sugar, or that, like you've already identified the person is an emotionally abusive manipulator. So once you've gone narcissist, at that point you should be trying to get away regardless of what they do, because then downstream of that, yes, of course they're going to put self-pleasure before the intimacy of the relationship. Once you've identified that it's a narcissist you're dealing with, you it's not a very nice message to give people, but like I must be truthful, you really have to learn to give up hope. I'm sure a lot of what keeps us in there is hoping that they'll change, hoping it'll get better. There's some thing that they have or they represent or they seem to be that we cling on to. And I'm like, can I have yes, they're poisonous, but the sweet thing is really sweet. I'm going to eat this cake. It's so delicious, laced with cyanide. Oh, I'm sick. Oh, recovered. Oh, I'll have a little bit more. Oh, I really shouldn't. Oh, you know, and then you get into that weird cycle where you should just be going, this is poison. I know it's poison, and that's it. He says he just needs time alone, but I'm feeling neglected and he doesn't care. Yes, what you're feeling, if you are dealing with a narcissist, is true. He is not capable of caring about you the way you care about him, and he doesn't want what you want. You want to be intimate with another human being. That's part of the pleasure for you as a human. But for the reptiles, sex is masturbation, a way to experience pleasure and a way to have an orgasm. And it's better with another human being's body. So the priority is the pleasure. For the reptiles, for the mammals, for the humans, it would be the intimacy of being with a human being that they care about, and then the sexual pleasure is like an added bonus to that. So yeah, their priorities are different. Stay with them long enough and they'll start to corrupt your priorities and your values too. I'm looking for a question mark. You know, this squiggly thing with a little dot underneath it. Charming serpent, poisonous venom, lying snakes. I was in a supermarket today, here in Spain, and a young Spanish boy walked up to me, stared at my chest, and went, "Venom?" And I was like, I tried to ignore him. I was like, I'm not, go away. And then he went, "Venom?" And I had a vest on that has Venom as a brand, MMA, and it has like a little, it's spelt the way you spelt Venom, Venum, and it had a snake on it. And he was telling me that he recognized the MMA brand. And I was like, oh, okay, okay. And then I bust out the supermarket because it was very awkward. Venom? So, what? What do you mean? Melissa says he just wants his own sexual pleasure. Do you, Sage Warrior, says, question. Ah, I'm just old. People say question. I don't think Beyonce. I think Destiny's Child. Old. Do you find recovery from narcissistic parents is sometimes more complicated than romantic relationships? Yeah. Well, so when it's this weird linguistic ambiguity in the English language between parent and partner. They're only a few letters apart. And when you're breaking up from a partner, usually in the therapeutic process, at some point, we would have to cover which coordinates of your parents, of an abusive parent you found in there, or neglectful, let's say, because people get very defensive about their parents. My childhood was perfect. Yes, yes, of course it was. So when you're breaking up from a partner, you are also in some ways breaking up from parental introjects as well. So which is more complicated? Equally complicated, probably. I've dealt with both, and healing from parental abuse seems so much harder because that's the direct source of what you're dealing with. In your partners, what you're dealing with is a reflected source of what you're dealing with. So the parent is the goddess of your childhood, and then the partner becomes an avatar of the goddess of childhood. That's why it would be harder. Angela says, preach, but I don't know what I was preaching about. I don't know what I was talking about when you wrote that. Preach. Question. What? What's it doing? Why is it doing that? Okay. Respawn. I need help with how I can make decisions. I've been living with my narcissistic father and also isolated me from people, but now I'm at college and need help with decision making. There isn't going to be much that I can do for you through this video. I'm afraid to tell you. If you were not, so your problem isn't decision making. It's not like, oh, here's 7 tips for decision making and everything's going to be okay. Your problem isn't decision making. Your problem is the permission to be, the permission to be you. So in a dynamic with a narcissistic father who you've been living with, if you're not allowed to be as a separate entity, you're at college age, so you're moving from your adolescence into adulthood. And if you're not being permitted and supported in that move into adulthood, and you're not permitted to be, that's why you can't make decisions, because who's making the decision? What do you want? If you find like the questions around like, what do you want? What do you want to do? Stresses you out and triggers you into dissociation. And that's typically because you've not been granted the permission to be. So that's why I said there's not much I can do for you here in this video, sadly. This is something you're going to have to explore, is breaking away from your narcissistic father's introjects and then committing a taboo, committing a crime where you disobey him and you learn to be as a man, as a woman, as a human, as an adult on your own terms. And this will be a battle, and it will take time, and you will need help. So get as much help as you can with that process. I will answer a couple more questions and then I will call this a night because it's quite late here in the Spanish lands. Oh, vamos a hablar en español. ¿Sabes hablar en español? Sí, la cosa es que tengo un acento perfecto. Gracias, Ricard, por todo lo que compartes. Imagine if I spoke like that. I know English people who speak Spanish like that, and it hurts the inside of my soul. Gracias por todo lo que compartes. La pregunta es, ¿cómo lidiar con la pareja narcisista si hay hijos? ¿Cómo protegerse y también a los hijos? Mil gracias. Cuando tus hijos tienen contacto con la narcisista, no puedes protegerlos completamente. You're always going to be making compromises, and there's always going to be an element of counter-parenting and counter-messaging that goes on. I don't know how old your children are, but there's going to be an impact from them being around a narcissistic parent that you then counterbalance. Now, if they have one healthy parent, they'll be okay. I don't know what age they are. Like if they're very young, they have to obey the other parent because otherwise they might run into the road or do something crazy. But if they're over the age of 12, I'm not telling you how to live, and I'm not a child psychologist. If it were me, I'm not giving you this as advice, but if it were me, I would say to my child something like, your mother, your father loves you, but they have a little bit of a problem processing reality. You may have already noticed that. Have you noticed that, child? You should do what they say because that's your mother, that's your father for the time being. But you don't have to listen to everything that they tell you is true non-critically. you can weigh it for yourself without getting into arguments with them. And you can consider whether you believe it is true or not. Some of the things that they're going to tell you about you, about me, and about how the world works are not right. And when they say these things to you, you'll feel it. And you can reject it without saying anything to them. And I would continue along that pathway with them. But that's just me. I'm not advising you do that. Because I have no right to advise anybody to do that. But that's how I would probably deal with it. Athena comes with this conjecture. I think all male narcissists are bisexual. I'm not sure about all females based on my family. I don't know if it was here or if it was on the Instagram live I did before I came on here, about people asking about the correlation between narcissism and addiction. There's a correlation between narcissism and sexual paraphilias and hypersexuality. Now, we know that human sexuality is very, very plastic. It's probably 30-40% genetic, according to my friend Professor Ed Dotton, which means you've got 60-70% is entrainment from culture. So if you have a hypersexual mindset and you are into breaking social convention and social mores, then maybe. I don't know much about it. I know that I've had gay clients, male gay clients, and they tell me that narcissism is rampant in the gay community. But whether I've seen or heard anything that suggests that male narcissists are bisexual, I don't know. I've had a lot of female clients tell me some stories about various things that male narcissists like to get up to sexually, that they are not fully honest about. They don't offer full disclosure to their partner in order for their partner to consent. And I'm a bit weirdly rigid and dogmatic with stuff like that. I think you can only really consent when you've got full disclosure as to who it is you're getting involved in a sexual relationship with. And so whether who people want to have sex with isn't something that particularly keeps me awake at night. How they want to have sex, how they want to achieve their orgasms is not my business. But honesty is important. Honesty is important, and not lying to your partner, and then giving your partner the opportunity to consent based on full disclosure, I think, is important. So, yeah, don't know enough about it. But my brain is scanning now and thinking, I've heard of a few cases. I know one. I've been friends with somebody who was clinically diagnosed as a narcissist, and he was obsessed with women, but he was also obsessed with bodybuilding, which meant that he spent a lot of time looking at male bodies and comparing himself to them and wanting to grow big muscles like them. That's an indication of bisexuality. But I did say to him, like, he was spending a lot of time looking at men with a big pump. You know, like when you get bodybuilders, pro bodybuilders, and they've got a pump, and they kind of look, they look like erections. Like everything is hard and tumescent and veiny. And I said that to him. And then another friend of mine who was not diagnosed, who I knew for decades, who I think if it would ring the bells for clinical narcissism, he made a pass at me a couple of times and then tried to write it off as a joke. It was like I was only joking. I was like, can you not do that joke? Please, I don't like that joke. That's not amusing. That doesn't work for me. So, yeah, I'll look into the literature on that because it would be interesting. Ha. Did I say pimp? Pimp what? Okay, let's do one more question. And narcissistic people are very overly sexual, especially in love bombing phase. Be careful. Don't video anything with them. Don't video anything with them. Bloody- Unless you're going to make an OnlyFans account together, or you're going to go the Pornhub route. We're the married couple on Pornhub. You know you're staying together. Otherwise, yeah, don't do that. Good lord, good lord. Yeah. Nervous sweating commences. I'm sure one day one of my ex-girlfriends is going to release some videos. Oh dear. Yeah. So to this point, not every narcissist is hypersexual. Some of them are very very asexual, which is confusing because I think their hypersexuality is related to the narcissistic personality disorder, and the total disinterest in sex can be related to the NPD disorder as well, which is really really confusing. We've gone down a sexual alley. What's a sexual alley? Israel Beard is back again. How do you deal with the stress and dissociation from dealing with a covert narcissist? Oh, therapy, therapy. Get to therapy. It's very difficult dealing with vulnerable narcissists. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. It's very very difficult. I would much rather deal with a grandiose, even psychopathic narcissist than a covert or vulnerable narcissist. Oh God, it's tough. So tough. I was diagnosed with EUPD. Is that the same meaning as bad? There's nothing bad about BPD. Uh, it. I don't look. I don't want to get into this argument because it causes an argument, um, and I don't have a dog in this race. I don't have a dog in this race. So I've already said, like, I don't think BPD is. I've made videos about it. I think it's an outdated diagnosis. I think we need to start splitting CPTSD and PTSD and vulnerable narcissism on the other side. I'm not sure that EUPD is a way to is a way to try and do good in the direction that I'm suggesting, which is, but I wish they would have just said. I wish they would have just gone with CPTSD. So beyond that, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut because I really it's so controversial. It creates so much upset, and my thing is helping the victims of narcissistic abuse recover. Um, you should speak to a clinician who specializes in these things, a qualified clinician, not some foolish YouTuber. Is she still a narcissist if she goes to therapy and tries to change? Um, if she's really trying to change, then it'd be unlikely that it's NPD. I don't think you can just describe a behavior in a void and then be like, is this covert narcissism? Is this psychopathy? Is it real? Is it not real? Narcissists could go to therapy and pretend to want to change, right? So if she's really going, she really wants to change, then that's not NPD. How would you know whether another person is really going to change or not? You can't go inside another person's mind, so how would you know the truth of what her intentions are? Unfortunately, you wouldn't. So yeah, sorry, I don't have a more reassuring answer for you on that one. FL Treasure says, hello, my friend. Your information is extremely valuable. That's very kind of you, and I'm glad to hear that you think so. Protein-rich diets make people horny, says Little Milky. To everybody who's just joined, we went down a slightly sexual path. I'm trying to lead us out of it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Don't vape. It's very bad for you. Thank you, Richard Redding. You're very welcome. Why my therapist says I'm regressing after a 6-year-long abusive relationship. In regards to me moving on, I have on my mind he's out of reach. I'm not really sure I understand that. Why is my therapist say I'm regressing after a 6-year-long abusive relationship? In regards to moving on, I have on my mind he's out of reach. If you could ask that question another way, I'm not confident that I understand you enough to go in some. I could be answering the wrong thing and just start rambling at you, and it would be confusing. Feel free to re-ask, but help me understand. Michelle, question: in a friend group of 30 years, in a disagreement with one who is demonizing me to the other three, to believe her narrative. Any advice? So, with like smear campaigns, what I've always tried to rely on, and some of you may be aware of this smear campaign that was run against me a year or so ago, and I didn't answer to it. My reasoning was, if people know me and they have trust in me, then they won't automatically believe what the other person is saying. And if they're intelligent, they'll look to the source and think, why is the source saying that? Why would they be doing that? And are they a reliable person? So if you're in a friend group of 4, and one person is demonizing you, well, that's not a friend. And the other 2 just believe her. That doesn't sound like they're very good friends either, because why don't they have any trust or faith in you? And if she's saying nasty things about you, bad mouthing you, running a smear campaign about you, why haven't they come to you directly in good faith and said, hey, first of all, they should stop her from doing that if they're friends, and be like, you should say that to her face. And then if she doesn't, they should come to you with that and say, look, this is what's happening and it needs resolution. If she's demonizing you, she's not a mate. And if they just go along with the demonization, they're not very good friends, I'm sorry to say. Well, if you can't go to therapy for various reasons, how do you kill the introject and rescue and recover your authentic self? Well, doing things under the guidance of a qualified clinician, who you get on with, is obviously optimal. But if you can't do that, you've got to rely on courses. I have courses, but they cost money. It's not free. And then the last level down from that is the information that's given in YouTube videos. Courses are good, especially when they're made by me, but it's never going to compare to face-to-face therapy. It just can't, because everybody's situation is a little bit different, is a little bit individual. I like the thing that we're doing quite regularly now, where people get therapy, then they'll do a course, and then the therapist gets the course, and then they adapt the course to the client in live therapy sessions with them. But if you can't do therapy, try doing a course. But if you're gonna go that route, don't spend the money unless you can sit down with yourself and in all honesty say, I am going to buy a pen and a notebook, and I'm going to spend 3 months on this course, and I'm going to do 20 minutes, half an hour every day for 90 days, studying the course, pulling it apart, doing the exercises, doing all the advice that's given in the course over and 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 over again. Because otherwise you can just blast like $200, $300 and watch half of it, forget the rest, and nothing will change. It's Like, if you've been in an abusive relationship, you've been entrained hourly, daily, weekly, monthly to think like this about yourself and about reality. You've now got to counter that conditioning in the other direction. You've got to be pretty disciplined. You've got to be, and you can't be passive. It's like strength training, it's skill training, it's like martial arts training, it's kung fu. You get up, you do your exercises. You don't want to do them anyway. You already did them yesterday, do them again today, because you're building skill, you're building a strength. The introject right now is firing automatically and you don't even see it, you don't even recognize it. What's it, how much training is it going to be before you can see it as an introject? Oh, wonderful. We got there. That's only level 1. Now you've got to resist it. Oh, I can see it and I can resist it. Wow, you're now flying higher than 95% of people recovering from narcissistic abuse. When you can see and you can resist the introject. Oh, wonderful. Better than 95%. Still not over. It's still not over. You can't just see it and resist it. You have to change the introject. I mean, it's tough. It's tough. The process is tough. You've got to be very, very, very disciplined and very, very willing. You need a strong will. And you're like, I'm going to heal this thing or die bravely in the effort. Samurai mentalities. Is it common for people that have left a narcissistic relationship to suffer with panic attacks at night? Yes. Yes. Sleep becomes very, very difficult. I actually met a guy at random last night who's from the former Yugoslavia places, the place that is near to my heart. And he was describing to me a relationship he was in and the terrible, terrible trouble that he had sleeping. And the partner he has even saying, God, you're kicking and crying out in your sleep. And he didn't believe her, so she videoed it. And he said he thought he looked like he was possessed. There is an enormous stress that's placed on the human system by the cognitive dissonance of the split introjects. So you have two, how dare you? You have two voices running inside of your head, fighting for dominance. One is the narcissist's reality, and the other, the fantasy, the matrix, the simulation. And the other is you fighting for your reality, fighting for your survival, fighting for your space. And they're in conflict with each other. It's brutal. I lived it for years. It can make you physically sick, make you very physically sick. It's bloody hard. So yeah, panic attacks at night, sure. Insomnia, appetite dysregulation, autoimmune issues, allergies, all kinds, all kinds. Bawil Gibob asks, why do narcissists ask questions they already know the answer to? I don't know. So the dude I met last night from Bosnia, I had an ex from Bosnia years ago, and she used to do this. It was her favorite thing. She would interrogate me about stuff that she already knew the answer to, and it would just break my brain. I posted a house key almost 2 weeks ago whilst in no contact. When they saw me recently, they asked when I was giving the key back. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's about control. I think it's about, maintaining that predator prey dynamic, like keeping on top of you, keeping you in the air, like a soccer ball being volleyed. Keeping you on the back foot, keeping you stressed, keeping you on the defensive. And if you're the one doing the interrogating, if you're the one doing the questioning, you're the one with the power. And the other person is the target, right? This thing with the house key, I'm sure my father used to do this to me. These memories are buried deep. No, he would give me stuff that I didn't fucking want and then demand it back just so he had an excuse to contact me. Give me that book back. I need it. So I never wanted it in the first fucking place. I didn't want your stupid, mongy book from some horrible, wretched little crystal shop about magical unicorns and manifestation. You weird old fuck. Wow. I think I need to take that to therapy. Like, give it me back. I need it. It's like, keep it. I never wanted it anyway. Your stupid snot-covered third-hand book that's covered in tea stains. That's about nothing. It's about nothing. It's mysticism for morons. It's just full of trite aphorism. You know who he loved? You triggered me now. Deepak fucking Chopra and Neil Donald Walsh. Conversations with God. He's talking to himself. Oh, it's not even internally consistent. It's not even internally consistent. Sometimes God is saying to humanity, you. And sometimes God is saying to humanity, we. It's just lazy, stupid, dissociative, masturbatory. I hate you, Dad. God damn it, that used to drive me nuts. Have this book, it's great. Give it me back, I need it. I'm going to kill you with this book. I'm going to make you eat it. Okay. Richard, breath. I want to write one of those books one day, and then you'll know I've sold out. All you have to do is align in the realm of non-local intentionality, like they're telling you to do in the quantum physics. Quantum physics doesn't say that. Where the observer effect means when no one is observing, the reality is changing. That's not what the observer effect means. That's not what it means. Yes. 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 Oh, it's great. It's wonderful. Wonderful. And this is what people love. This is what people just consume. That's not what an observer is. That's not what an observer is. That's not what these experiments show. Oh, I loved all that. Fucking loved all that. Just bollocks. Just trite bollocks. Unfounded, pseudo-spiritual, half chopped, half digested, gibberish. And you know what the conclusion of all this gibberish was? Do nothing. Do nothing. Just enjoy being a white middle-class Westerner. Change nothing. Do nothing. Everything's fine. Funny that. Don't get me started on the Stoics. Don't get me started on people who post Stoicism quotes, because it's going to go to a dark place. I think we were having a better time when we were talking about sex. Let's go back. Let's go back. Let's everybody just breathe, and let's align now our chakras into the space of non-locality, non-local. Oh. Sorry, hard to phrase this. Well, little space. After the 6-year abusive relationship, I have someone deeply seriously on my mind. He's single, but very far for a real chance together. Regressing. How? Dude, I couldn't possibly know that. I couldn't. There's no chance I could know the answer to that question. I mean, I would like to think I was wise and all-knowing, but there's just no way I could know that. Your therapist presumably is talking to you an hour a week. And so there's so much more to this story. There's so much more to your interaction with your therapist. I'm sure that your therapist hasn't come to the conclusion that after 6 year abusive relationship, that because you like somebody who's single but who's far away, that means that you're regressing. There would be other reasons, and your therapist could be wrong. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. Um, there's just nowhere near enough detail there for me to say that. These things are complicated, you know. They're really, really complex. Um, I don't even want to make up a story why it could mean that if you're into somebody who's very far away, that means that you're aggressing. No way of not, because I don't know you. I don't know your story. I don't know the specifics. I'm sorry to be of little use on that question. Great mimicry. Thank you very much. I do a good Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, if anybody wants that impression. Osho, as he became known. 6 long years of my life on your trail by Morrissey. I do like a bit of Morrissey. Okay. I actually had to quit the largest spiritual publishing company in the world because I couldn't handle all the narcissists. Was it Sounds True? Sounds True. What's the largest spiritual publishing company? Because I grew up with all that stuff in the 80s and 90s because my dad was into it. The largest one. Sounds True was a big one. Largest spiritual publishing company. Huh. The Shambhala as well, wasn't there? Anyway, I'm not surprised. I'm so not surprised. I mean, I have stories of people I met and then people I know who met some of the big names in that thing, and it's like it's almost like there's nothing else there. It's almost like there's nothing else there. I did a seminar recently in Liverpool, and I was talking about politicians and people who want to be in positions of power, and how it makes sense that the more narcissistic and psychopathic amongst us would want to be politicians. You wouldn't want to think that the same rule applies to every spiritual leader and every spiritual guru. But then you see the Dalai Lama telling someone to suck his tongue, and you just think, this world must be run by Satan. Must be. That's the only logical conclusion. Can you explain how you feel bad on days that are an anniversary of things that happen with a narcissist, even if you didn't know the date? I suspect we probably are tracking dates at an unconscious level. Like, you ever set your alarm for 6:30 in the morning and you wake up at 6:29? It's not like you woke up at 6:25, like 5 minutes before. You woke up 15 seconds before the alarm was due to go off. So we probably are tracking dates and times more than we realize at an unconscious level. And that means the unconscious has infinite power. And if you can just access the unconscious, you can manifest anything. You just have to be aligned at the frequency level. What do you mean by frequency? You know, the vibe. What do you mean by vibe? You know, the non-local energy that you're pouring out moment by moment as your molecules are coming in and out of reality. Are they? Coming in and out of reality, are they? Yeah, sort of. A little. It's a metaphor. Were the good times so good? Were the good times a lie? Well, they were enjoyed with a person who's a figment of their own imagination and a figment of your imagination. But the things you did were real. They just weren't happening inside of the narrative that you thought they were a lie, probably, kind of. But that doesn't mean you can't enjoy good things, like with someone else who's not a scary reptile person, scary reptile vampire. Where is the best food ever? You know I'm going to say Portugal. We all know that Portugal has the best food in the world. It's the best food in the world. Where's the best cake? O melhor bolo do mundo. It's Portugal. It's the cake shop in Quatera. It's o melhor bolo do mundo. Gin is on me. See you this summer. I will be in Lisbon, and then I will probably be in Quatera afterwards. Quarteira. Red Hot Chili Peppers and Nine Inch Nails are my favourite bands, says Lil Milky. Yeah, we weren't happy about that. Also, wasn't happy to see people defend him and say that's normal in Tibetan culture. No, it's not. Stop talking. Bollocks. Oh, yes, we have children suck our tongues every day. Totally normal. Hey, now. How about no? Why am I trying to prove to my narcissistic bully, even though I haven't interacted with him in years? He used to make out I was stupid, and now I'm trying to prove to myself I'm smart. Yeah, why is that? I did something like that. Now, why did I do that? I probably should finish soon because I'm getting so tired I can't pull the notes. No, so this is important. I'll finish here. So narcissistic personality disorder. There's 9 traits that are defined in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, and then there's traits in the ICD-10. And I don't think they're very good. And I don't think they're even the most. I don't think it's an extensive list, and I don't think it covers everything. One of the really important ones that is missed out is hyper competitiveness. It is a hyper competitive. So if we're going to say, oh, you can identify them by them being interpersonally exploitative and they have a haughty demeanor, whatever the fuck and all that means, you should be able to say you can identify them by the fact they're hyper competitive to the point where they bring competition to things where there is no competition. So just, I'm answering your question, but just take that and put it there. Hyper competitive. When you interact with them and you stay with them for a long period of time, you start to absorb their coordinates. It doesn't mean that you. So in the new course, Narcissistic Matrix Reintegration, I present the idea that we mirror the narcissist. That doesn't mean you develop MPD or you lose empathy. You would have been better off if you had. You would have survived it better if you did develop MPD and you did lose your empathy, but you didn't. So you keep your empathy, but you mirror a sort of a narcissism light in order to survive being with them. So then you become more competitive than you otherwise would have been. And it's not a personality disorder that we typically associate with maturity and adulthood, reasonable behavior, being kind, being, cooperative and adult. It's childish, it's infantile, it's silly. And in my last, what I would consider pathological relationship, because I had a bad relationship, but the girl didn't have a personality, disorder. She had problems, but she didn't have a PD. But in the last one that was pathological, I found myself also becoming childish and competitive on her terms about stuff that I actually didn't really care about. And I realized that I was mirroring her and I'd become narcissistically fragile. So presumably, well, I will presume nothing. There's this thing So narcissist, it's a fragile position that they're in. The personality disorder is defensive, but it's built on sand, so it's very fragile, and the sand is always shifting. And they're hyper vigilant to slights, to insults. They're like, I'm not trying to pull off a con here. Who's seeing through the con? If anybody sees, I'm just going to strike them down straight away. So then they get hypersensitive. They're fragile and they're hypersensitive, and then you start to mirror their fragility and their hypersensitivity, which really isn't you, and you become childish and hyper competitive. Now, if anybody slights them, this is called a narcissistic injury, and they go into a narcissistic rage. But I think we also become more prone to narcissistic injury. So he's narcissistically injured you in a way that would affect him. So my brain's really running too slow for this. Have you ever had somebody try to insult you or hurt your feelings in a way that would hurt them, but that doesn't hurt you? So you'll get people who be like, they try and make a cutting statement. But how do I know what's going to hurt you, full gallon of milk person? I can only sort of create a simulation of what I think is going to hurt you solipsistically by what would hurt me. Now, if I choose something that would hurt me, but it doesn't hurt you at all, my insult or my cutting words will fall flat. So if you weren't in a narcissistically abusive relationship with him and he didn't entrain you, he, she, I don't know, who did you say? He. So if he didn't entrain you, if he said you were stupid, you'd be like, okay, first of all, who the fuck are you again? Some random dude I don't care about saying that he doesn't think I'm very intelligent. Also, people's perception of my stupidity or intelligence isn't something that I dwell on. It's not something I was bullied for at school. It's not something my parents gave me shit about. I don't really care about this kind of thinking. But because you're being entrained by him, suddenly you're like, his opinion matters and is important. And also what he's talking about matters. I don't know how much to share with you. So it's a little bit embarrassing. But in my situation, my ex, the pathological one, not the one, she was another one who's a good human, but she's got just horrible upbringing and got problems, but she's not, doesn't have personality disorder. The pathological one managed to get into my head about how attractive I was to other women and how I wasn't attractive to other women. And I was just, and I was like, this is something I had to bring to therapy, and I was embarrassed. So I've never had such dementedly petty thinking in my life as to agonize. But and then when I was doing the therapy, I realized it's not, that's her coordinates. It's crucially important to her that she be attractive to men. And then she started to do this narcissistic injury thing to me. And so because I was entrained to her and mirroring her, it worked. And then I started to be like, I'm not, maybe I'm not pretty enough. It's just not, my line of reasoning doesn't work like that. I don't reason in that. It's not that I don't care whether I'm attractive. I'm not insecure about it. I'm not like gonna be worried about it. I start worrying about it. So in the same way, I would suggest you've been sort of tricked, bait and switched into caring about what he thinks, and B, caring about this thing of being stupid or intelligent. Like, who are you trying to prove yourself to, and what for? And in the end, I was like, I am not going to play this game. I had to say to myself, my therapist helped me, of trying to prove to this sexually incontinent moral degenerate that I can get as many sexual partners as she can. I'm not, because then I was like, well, where are these thoughts coming from? Like, who's this thinking? What am I doing? So now she's going to determine how I live my life. I've never been I've never been that person who would rate their value by how many partners they had. I just think it's inane. It's totally fucking inane. But there I was. There I was. I was worrying about it. I was thinking about it. And I think you've experienced the same thing. You've been tricked into worrying about something that isn't yours, it's his. So he's worried about being stupid, is the truth of this. He's the one who's insecure about his intelligence and how stupid it is. He's the one whose father told him he was an idiot, whose mother smacked him because he couldn't do maths or whatever. It's his parental introjects that he's firing at you. Got the insecurity about stupidity. When you can wrap your head around that, you can see the introject, you can resist the introject, and you can change it. So in my case, I was like, I saw it, I resisted it, and my changing of it was I was just like, it is beneath my dignity and it is not in alignment with my values to try and live my life based on my dinkle. In the same way, you shouldn't be thinking, how clever am I? And I'm going to base my whole life around my brain or my IQ. It's not as inane, but it's pretty inane. It's pretty inane. So like, and it's not yours. So what are your coordinates? What do you care about? What's important to you? How should a person live? This is why I keep saying to people, and maybe I'm not being clear enough with it. That's why I'm encouraging people to develop a moral philosophy and to answer the philosophical questions and the spiritual questions, because then you can come back to you. I'm like, well, we're all here on this planet. We're all, I guess, trying to move forward, move upward, ascend from animal nature to higher nature. Is that being concerned about my prettiness or my cleverness? Is that in alignment with that? No, it's got nothing to do with anything. And the suffering stopped. It just stopped straight away. I was like, that's not my game. That's not my circus. Those aren't my clowns. That's nothing to do with me. People who want to worry about that stuff and compete over that stuff, go ahead, contract all the syphilis, contract all the AIDS, go ahead. It's not for me. And in the same way, you should be, let me help you. Go on Quora and Reddit onto the high IQ forums. I found out recently that I'm probably quite high IQ. And so I started to try to interact with other high IQ people. They are fucking insufferable. They are intolerable. They're so boring, so stuck up. You don't like being smart. If you're significantly low IQ, that's a hindrance. It's like poverty. Being poor isn't cool. But beyond a certain point of having money, it's not like you become a better and better person the more money you have. Same with IQ. You don't become a better and better person. You're not a cooler and cooler, kinder and kinder, more alive, more aligned human being dependent on your IQ. Like I can see by your writing and your grammar, you're not stupid. You're not stupid. So the rest you're worrying about, like, am I at 115 or 140? It's just, nobody's gonna know. Nobody's gonna know unless you start trying to flex and being like, I know some long words about a very niche subject, blah 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 blah, blah. And it's tedious. It's tedious. People hate that. You don't want to be that guy. The girl. You're a person. I don't know. You said he. I don't know. I don't know. I said I was high IQ, but maybe I'm stupid. And maybe I'm tired. I don't know. Let's all pray for a good night's sleep for your dear friend and storyteller. Just imagine, I want you to imagine I'm floating through the quantum realm of infinite potentiality, floating in non-local space. Ah. Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that was useful. And if it wasn't, I can only apologize. Thank you, nevertheless, for your time and for your attention. And I look forward to speaking to you in the non-local spacings very soonings.